Hello everybody to another interview opportunity on the Charles Kovess Show. And for those of you who have been following me for over 235 episodes, I don't do many interviews, but when I find the right person to interview, I'm delighted to do so. So my guest today is Joe Pane, written Pane, P-A-N-E, good Italian origin name. So welcome, Joe. Joe was born in Melbourne, like I was. He's a third generation Italian. I'm a second generation Hungarian, I reckon. So if that's how we count it, Joe, isn't it? So my parents were Hungarian migrants, so I'm a first generation Australian, and I think you're one generation down. You're like my kids, who are second generation. Is that correct?
Correct.
So Joe is very similar industry to me, as an educator, as an executive coach. And why I wanted to, particularly for lots of reasons, but the big reason I wanted to have a conversation with Joe, and it's not Joe Rogan, as I say, it's Joe Pane, is because he is a guru in the uncertainty space. And I've done previous shows on this, where all the media says we are in incredible uncertain times. So I wanted to talk to Joe about uncertainty, about behavioural assessments of DISC profiling, of profilings generally. And Joe and I had a conversation earlier this week, and it was wonderful. The work that he does is wonderful and is life-changing. So Joe, welcome to the Charles Kovess Show, and tell us about your journey to where you've got to.
Well, thank you so much, Charles. It was lovely. I thoroughly loved our chat the other day. As you said, we could have just recorded that as our conversation, and it would have been just perfectly fine. It was great. Well, my journey briefly. I've got a psychology, sociology background. In the 90s, I exited the world of academia and plunged my way into the manufacturing space of Ford Motor Company in Victoria, where they used to produce the Ford Falcon. And I worked there as a rehabilitation counsellor for about 2.5 years. Absolutely hated it because of all of the... I walked into it with absolute ignorance from and greenness from uni. Didn't know about the political agendas and the toxicity and the all the permutations and combinations all going on there with shop stewards and medical centres and insurance companies and the whole thing. So I didn't know what to do with myself after 2.5 years. So to take some time to work that out, I took some time out, and I ended up working for about 7 years in residential real estate sales. And
wow.
Which, as I shared with you in our conversation, Charles, it taught me more about the human condition and uncertainty in all of its ways, more than my psychology, sociology degree could have done 10 times over, really. And that's fair income. Like, I can't exaggerate that enough. So I did that for about 7 years, and that taught me a lot about people, business, pressure, money, the realities of living in the Western world with your feet on the ground, and the embracement of responsibilities. In that time, I got married, and Silvana and I are still blissfully still together 30 years later. And then what happened was I began disengaging with the work that I was doing. I was losing motivation, and this was all very unconscious. I was consciously aware of it, but I didn't know what was driving this. Why was it that what was so sparky and perky and exciting no longer lit me up anymore on any level? And so the long and the short of it there is I took about 12, 15, 16 months off, and I went on a sabbatical. Now, I didn't even know the word sabbatical even existed. This was in 2003, Charles. I didn't even know. I remember I was 3 months into this so-called sabbatical, and someone said to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing all of these I'm trying different things. I'm going to silent retreats. I'm doing vision quests. I'm doing meditation retreats. I'm doing all these wonderful, amazing things, placing myself in these organic sort of altered states of consciousness to just learn more about life, living and love and all good things." And they said, "Oh, you're on a sabbatical." And I said, "What the hell is that?" And they said, "Well, when people have got no idea what they're doing and they need to take some time out to figure it out." And I said, "Oh my God, I am on a sabbatical, Charles." So it was It was life-changing, and I started running out of money. And my wife's patience was starting. She was working, and she was starting to, wane a little bit in terms of the patience factor. So I went back into real estate. Quickly discovered I didn't belong there anymore, and in February 2006, I decided to go back to my psychological roots and begin my consulting, training, coaching business in 2006. And here we are now, you and I talking. I'm in my 20th year of running this business, and these days I specialize in the field that I refer to as emotional fitness. And of course, emotional fitness is all about transforming one's relationship with uncertainty. And here we are now, Charles, talking about this whole, which I believe is a very, very important topic in terms of our relationship with uncertainty. So that's the summary of it all. And I've got twin sons who are 17, and I'm a runner. That's it.
Yes, and I think you've run 8 marathons and I've run 9 marathons. And
yeah, Charles, you've inspired me, because next year I need to do another one so I can match you.
and I have twin sons as well, and so my journey.
Oh, I didn't know that. We didn't talk about that the other day.
So,
how old are your boys?
39.
Wow, that's amazing.
39,
love it.
But my first, so as regular viewers of my show will know, I'm an expert in marriage because I've had 3 successful marriages, and my first wife was an identical twin, and then we had twins, and then I have a twin brother and sister as well. So everywhere I look, we're covered. But twins are wonderful. They entertain each other and make it easy on the parents.
Yes, like everything, it's got its positives and negatives.
Correct. In my first marriage, we had 4 children under 5 at one stage. So
wow,
thank God we did it young enough. So uncertainty. Now we're going to come back to the DISC profile, and because you can talk and because I can talk, I really want to get to the nub of helping people improve their emotional fitness. And we talked about DISC profile. We'll talk about profilings in a moment. But I shared with you when we spoke earlier this week on my favorite definition, my favorite quote on uncertainty. And it's an old Chinese saying, and I wrote about it in my books. To be uncertain can be uncomfortable. However, to be certain is ridiculous. And
yes,
people are walking around saying, I need to be certain about what's happening with Trump. I need to be certain about what's happening in Israel, Gaza. I need to be certain about what's happening in my income situation. And you and I, as entrepreneurs, have no certainty about our income. But you share some wonderful wisdom about uncertainty. So please tell us your perspective on it, because they are wonderful, wonderful insights.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Charles. It's a wonderful quote. You shared that with me the other day. It was lovely. I love that. I think that's so accurate. So there's so much to say about this topic. So I found in my work that psychologically speaking, our relationship with uncertainty is the most crucial relationship of all outside of our relationship with people, because uncertainty is a fabric of life. And the reason why it's a fabric of life is because it's a fundamental requirement of life that we experience uncertainty. And I'm going to speak in a moment about the spectrum of uncertainty that exists. There's different types of uncertainty, from the very shallow end of the pool to the very deep end of the pool, which I'll circle back to in a moment, Charles. But the thing with uncertainty is it's a precursory seed. It's a requirement of life, because without it, we can't grow. And everything in nature, from everything behind me here, everything in nature, economies, skill sets, marriages, bodies, psychologies, everything is either green and growing or ripe and rotting, borrowing the words from Ray Kroc from McDonald's. He was apparently the fellow who said that.
Stop again. Without uncertainty, we cannot grow. I think that's a profound idea, a profound principle. And then Ray Kroc's quote follows on is, just so that I really want people to get this.
Absolutely. We are either green and growing or ripe and rotting.
Beautiful. We are either green.
And that really aligns perfectly, Charles, with your quote of certainty is ridiculous, because we can only be comfortable with certainty for ever so long before everything either falls this way or falls that way. and nothing in nature stays still. Nothing stays still. I was misunderstood on social media the other day when someone said to me, "Oh, growth is unsustainable." It's like, that's not the kind of growth I'm talking about. I'm talking about, as human beings, we need to keep up with who we're becoming, because life will continue as our responsibilities continue to expand, and life demands more of us. And this is a great question that I asked a client the other day. I said, "What is life asking of you right now?" Because life is continually asking more of us. And by more, I don't mean more in the material sense. I mean more in terms of the spiritual, energetical, emotional, essence, being sense. So uncertainty, the reason why this is a crucial topic as far as the world of psychology is concerned is because in our lives, is because most people, Charles, have an unresourceful relationship with uncertainty. They correlate it with fear. And when we correlate uncertainty with fear, it's going to smother our potential. It's going to reduce the probabilities of us growing into who we need to become. Carl Jung often spoke about the process of individuation. And individuation is not about becoming an individual, because that's often misunderstood. It's about becoming the best version, genuinely the best version of Charles Covess, of Joe Pane, of Jane Smith, of whoever we're talking about. And to get to that and beyond, we need to have a resourceful relationship with uncertainty. So what's a resourceful correlation? Well, nature shows us that uncertainty correlates with growth, hence the point I'm making. And if you and I, and any of our beautiful listeners here, reflect on any of the most difficult situations that you've been in, when you've experienced uncertainty at what I call the deep end of the pool, it's those experiences that have boosted our growth more than anything else. In other words, the more stinky and the more manure there is in the uncertainty, the more that we grow, right? It's just that we don't consciously choose that. And this is what I want to also now talk about, if I can, the metaphor of the swimming pool, because there's varieties, there's versions of uncertainty that we consciously invite into our lives, and there's versions of uncertainty that we unconsciously invite into our lives, or we don't actually invite into our lives that we're aware of. And there's a spectrum of uncertainty, or a spectrum of perception when it comes to different versions of uncertainty. Are you okay if I continue on with that, Charles, or did you have any questions bubbling up in you that you wanted to ask?
No, beautiful. I love.
So
I'm just writing down. Swimming pool. You go the shallow end or the deep end. And I was just reminiscing back to when I was about 9 years of age, jumping off the high board at a swimming pool where I hadn't yet learned to swim, and I'm landed in deep water. And I go, gosh, I can't swim. Anyway, keep going.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So, naturally, metaphorically speaking, the very shallow end of the pool, and we're talking, knee height level, ankle height level of uncertainty, is that uncertainty comes into our lives. We consciously invite it in the form of variety. Variety is something like, taking a different street to work, driving a different way to work, or finding a slightly different way that you want to exercise. Variety is cooking something you haven't had for a while. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. It's humor, it's fun, it's laughter, it's giggle, it's a whole plethora of different things. And that's the very easy part of uncertainty. So variety, that's at the ankle level really of the pool. Then as we go deeper into the pool, we've also got, and variety is a version of uncertainty that we consciously invite into our lives. Then we have adventure. So adventure is also a calling. It's something that we embrace and we reach out to and embrace and bring into our lives. So adventure might be, you might decide to travel to a non-English speaking part of the world that is, completely unfamiliar to you, just so you can experience the adventure of another culture, for example. Or you might venture into joining a local community group that you find stretches your philosophy of living or something like that, or might challenge some of your thinking. Adventures are things that we consciously invite. Then as we go toward the middle of the pool, we're still touching the floor of the pool, but the water's now up to sort of our chest and nearly up to our neck. We can still breathe. Uncertainty presents itself as challenges. Now, challenges, you and I have embraced challenges in our lives. You've done 9 marathons. Now, a marathon is not nothing to sneeze at. It's a 42.2 kilometre race that is very difficult, especially from kilometre 30 on, and we haven't got all the time in the space here to explore the whole world of running and how all that works, but we know that it's a very, very difficult challenge, but it's a conscious challenge. You would have made a conscious decision, not only to embrace that challenge, but also to embrace the challenge of the preparation. As we know, it's a blessing to make it to the start line of a marathon injury-free, let alone to complete one at one's, level of success, whatever your determination of that is, right? So that's a challenge. So whether it's a physical challenge, a mental challenge, for me it was physical challenges in the form of marathons, but also in the form of doing a vision quest, which is one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. That was during my sabbatical, where the essence of it was a 5-day camp, but the essence of it was, 72 hours of sitting in a medicine wheel with no sleep, no food, just being present to nature and going to an altered state of consciousness and just surfing that. And that's a whole other story unto itself, which deserves more sound bites than that. But that was a challenge that was very difficult on all levels, spiritually, emotionally, physically, on all levels. So challenges sit in the middle of the pool. Then as we get to the deep end of the pool, we start getting into the realm of uncertainty that we don't consciously invite into our lives. Because the next level of uncertainty are problems. Now, the definition of a problem, which I need to separate from drama, because a lot of people confuse drama and problems. A problem is something that affects one of the big three. So the big three in life, of course, are money, health, relationships. So if you've got a problem with your health or a problem with your money that's really reasonably serious, a problem with a relationship coming to an end or some issue going on there, if one of those big three are hit, you've got a problem. And of course, what happens is for some people is they go to the very, very deep end of the pool where now they've lost complete touch of the bottom and they're sort of struggling to stay afloat. And that's when we go into full-blown crisis. Now, full-blown crisis is when you've got perhaps 2 or 3 of the big three being hit, where you've got a health problem and a money problem, or you've got a relationship problem and a money problem, or a combination of all 3, or whatever it's going to be. And that's a full-blown crisis. And that's where the emotional fitness frameworks sing their song. That's where people get a lot of help. So one of my favorite sayings in life, Charles, is, and this is something that I'm happy to be challenged on, because so far my attitude toward what I'm going to share with you here is that I'm very happy to be wrong about what I'm going to share with you here, and I'm happy for you to challenge us, please, Charles. But what I've found in my life so far at the age of 55 is so far I've found that life is either squeezing us or we are squeezing it. If we don't squeeze life, in other words, consciously invite challenges, embrace the adventures, and have a resourceful relationship with uncertainty, if we squeeze life, life has no reason to squeeze us back. But when we avoid, go around, suppress, repress, ignore, not talk about, not focus on the very essences of what we need to embrace in order to improve our relationship with uncertainty, then life's going to bring us an effing challenge. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, Charles.
You can say fucking anytime you like.
I can swear?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is, if we don't squeeze life, life's going to come along and squeeze us. And I've found that if we become professional avoiders of uncertainty, then life will find uncanny ways of fucking us up. So then we've got a fair dinkum problem that we now need to navigate. And that's where the emotional fitness work comes, because becoming emotionally fit doesn't mean that uncertainty gets easier. Uncertainty can't get easier, otherwise it defeats the whole purpose of what the existence of uncertainty is. Becoming emotionally fit means you learn how to navigate with direction and clarity through something very, very difficult. So a marathon is hard no matter what. If you're unfit and untrained, it's going to be hell. If you're trained and prepared and you know how to navigate the marathon, it doesn't mean that the marathon is going to be easy. It's still going to be hard. It's just that you've got a different level of intelligence and awareness around what you need to do to nutritionalize yourself, prepare your body, and a whole bunch of different things that go with that whole adventure. So for most people, and this is where, as I said, I'm happy to be wrong, but I've found so far that the more I consciously squeeze life, the less reason it has to come at me. And I'm still going, and I'll get to grow because I'm consciously inviting uncertainty into my life. Is that making sense, Charles?
Yeah, and it was only this week that my darling wife, Julie, introduced me to Wayne Dyer's message. And I knew Wayne Dyer personally because his publisher was Hay House, and my publisher of my first book, Passionate People Produce, was Hay House. And Wayne said, when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. You don't get apple juice. You don't get a grapefruit juice. When you are squeezed, what comes out? The real you.
Yes, nice.
And if you avoid being squeezed, number one, you'll never gain any self-awareness because you won't find out what's in there. And so it's not the same as what you said. Absolutely, you squeeze life, and then that develops your capabilities. But when life squeezes you, then you have the fitness to be able to do that, number one. But number two, the stuff that comes out when we're squeezed, says Wayne Dyer, that's raises our conscious awareness of, gosh, what is inside me? And in this show for 240 episodes, that's what this show is about, self-awareness of really becoming aware. Gosh, and you raised the point earlier that you didn't know what was going on inside you, and you go, gosh, and most people don't know. They go, why am I feeling as I'm feeling? So that makes total sense. Now come back to this question you were going to touch on. What's the difference? Because I often say to people, and this is another crucial insight from the work of Buckminster Fuller. I share it in every one of my seminars and my speeches. Buckminster Fuller, a man who was awarded 47 honorary doctorates for those who can't recall or are new to the show.
Amazing man.
He said this: as human beings, our major reward for solving problems is not peace and happiness, it's bigger problems. So the reward for solving problems is bigger problems. So I say, you choose to love your problems, don't resist them, because you deserve them, because that's your journey. And then people say to me, I don't have problems, I just call them challenges. And you were going to make this distinction between challenges and problems. Because everyone's got problems, and people are unhappy, Joe, because you think about it. Why are people unhappy? Because they've got problems. But Bucky has taught us that, hang on, who doesn't have problems? And so if you're waiting for the absence of problems to be happy, you will be miserable for the rest of your life.
Spot on.
So come back to this problems versus challenges, your perspective on that.
Love it, love it. I'm going to answer that question in 10 seconds. I want to just circle back to what you say about Wayne Dyer, Charles, because I had the blessed. I haven't written lots of books like yourself, but I've written one book that took me 4 years to write, called Courage to Be You, and it's a book about uncertainty and emotional fitness. There's a dedication in that book to Wayne Dyer, because I had the blessed fortune of seeing his last lecture in 2015 in Melbourne, and he passed away only barely 2 weeks later. I couldn't believe my luck of timing. Is that I met him, I shook his hand. First time I've met him in person. Went to his lecture there in Melbourne. It was obviously fantastic. And then 10 days later, something like that, the devastating news that he passed in his sleep peacefully at the age of 75. So I just wanted to, and so I dedicated the opening of the book because I've borrowed his language around the journey that is about moving from ambition to meaning in my book, and I wanted to accolade where that inspiration linguistically came from, which was from him. So I just wanted to mention that, Charles, because that's another coincidence between us both, because we spoke about all these parallels in our lives the other day.
Well, I'll give you a bigger coincidence. My wife Julie was in that same audience with you.
Oh wow!
And she was in the front row beside Wayne's wife, because she was a guest. She was a guest of Hay House through my connection with Leon Nax, the managing director of Hay House Australia. There's now been
in Melbourne. This is the Melbourne lecture.
The Melbourne lecture, his last lecture. You're correct. How about that for synchronicity?
That's amazing.
And
Charles, we've got to spend some more time together, man.
And both of you, Julie and you, were born in the same year. So there you are.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. So back to challenges and problems. So I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was uncannily beautiful. So challenges and problems. So yes, our life has always got problems, but whether they're in the flavor of challenge or problems is to some degree, not completely, to some degree, up to us. So to some point. So the purpose. I'm going to circle back to the difference in a moment. I just need to clear my thoughts out here. So the purpose of problems or challenges, they both serve the same purpose. And that purpose is for us to progress as human beings is that without consciously choosing a challenge is something that is much more difficult than an adventure. An adventure is fun. Variety is fun. The shallow end of the pool is fun. When we start going into challenge in the middle of the pool, to problems, to crisis, that's not fun. Like, it might be fun to do a marathon or whatever the challenge is, but the vision quest that I did and the marathons I've done, I can't say they were fun. They were hard. But I know that something shifted within me at the end of every marathon I've done, and at the vision quest of the 7-day silent retreats, all those things that I found genuinely difficult. I found there was a progressive. I love Earl Nightingale, Charles, where he defines success as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And the worthy ideal is who you're becoming. And I was listening to the wonderful James Hollis, Hollis. He's 81. James is a Jungian psychologist. And he says in his literature, is this experience expanding me or diminishing me? Is this decision I'm making, this choice I'm about to make, expanding me or diminishing me? Am I making this decision now to diminish or expand myself? So if we continue to choose choices that diminish us, we're just going to be squeezed to the point where we're going to be having problems. If we're making choices that expand us, we're consciously choosing the challenge path, which will have its problems. So challenge is really a problem we've invited. A problem is a problem that we haven't seemed to have invited, that has come along. But either way, both serve the same purpose, and that's progress. The progress of what?
Or I would make this, I just wrote it down here. The distinction between challenges and problems is that you choose challenges, but problems choose you.
I love that. That's really well said. That's accurate. I love that. Yeah, love that.
All right, so,
great insight,
and do my decisions expand me or shrink me? And of course, if you eat too much, there you are. Those decisions are expanding you. and we know that 60% of Australians are either overweight or obese. So it's a shocking number. Now, because time marches on, you articulated that uncertainty. It's a beautiful metaphor. So problems at the problem level of money, health, relationship, we're at the deep end. Now, and I quote that Earl Nightingale. That's my definition of success that I have adopted as well, precisely the same. So again, love the synchronicity. I now want to segue to DISC profiles and your work in that, and you have coached 7,000 coaches. So can you tell us about those profiles? Because I did my first personality profile back in 1986 with a behavioural psychologist, and that was the first time that I saw the similar questionnaire, 24 questions with 4 multiple choices, and in each of the boxes you go, I'm most like this, least like this. And that was my first introduction, and then I got a report on me, and it blew my mind as to how accurate it was. I love personality profiles. I've done many of them. I don't use them in my work, but you are a master in this space. Give us your perspective on DISC. I'm a fan of DISC, and I love people's knowledge around it. So tell us about it and how people could be using it if they haven't been well exposed to it.
Yeah. Well, the world of DISC, the DISC labeling system, the nomenclature has been around since the 50s. And it wasn't until the mid-90s, specifically 1994, when there was a fellow in Finland who created a behavioural version of it. So a distinction here that's really important to share with everyone listening is that personality profiling systems do not have behavioural profiling in them, but all behavioural profiling systems have got personality profiling within them. The main difference is personality profiling is useful, absolutely, in describing, and at the risk of being misunderstood by anyone listening here, personality profiling alone is the shallow end of the pool. If we can stick to the pool analogy, it looks like there's a very useful pool analogy here today, Charles. And the behavioural profiling is the deeper end of the pool. So how do we know that? What does that mean? And how is that true? So personality profiling focuses on the structure of your thinking. So your thinking style, your decision-making style, but more specifically your thinking style. What's interesting about the word personality, by the way, is that when you decode the language from the, oh my God, what was the, I forgot the actual root language, but personality, persona, actually translates to mask. So the mask is like,
mask, yes.
I guess you could say mask, yeah. So the car, if our car is a certain type of car, so we've got to work out, well, what kind of car are we in? What kind of personality do we have? Does this car climb mountains? Does it work well on a Formula One track? Is it more of a whippy car that works around tight streets of the city? What kind of persona are we? We know that we're not the car, but we need to know what the car's capabilities are so we can maximize our superpowers, so we can contribute most meaningfully into the world. As someone once said, I can't remember who said this, but if a fish has been convinced by someone that it can climb a tree, it's going to live a life experiencing itself as an idiot because it can't climb trees. Yeah. So it doesn't know its personality. That's a very gross way of putting it, very simple way of putting it. So personality profiling is important to know the basics and fundamentals. What kind of car are you? What kind of land and road do you operate at best, Charles? So that's really important. The behavioural profiling is going to the deep end of the pool, because behavioural profiling now is touching the work of Carl Jung, where we start going into the unconscious mind. And that's where we begin to learn how our energy system works, how our emotions work, and how we relate to uncertainty itself. And that's the bridge that I've built between behavioural profiling and emotional fitness, because your behavioural profile, whether we are aware of it or whether we're not, is going to have a direct impact on how you embrace, resist, take on, enjoy, hate, uncertainty. Depends on all of that. So the example I shared with you the other day when we were chatting is that, if we've got Charles Caves here, who is and as I said, I made this up the other day and I'll make it up again today, is, if Charles is a big picture person and detail is a stretch, your personality profile version of DISC will say the big picture is one of your strengths and that detail is a bit of a stretch. Now, when someone sees a profile like that, and that's, by the way, in human behavior, we call that's a meta program, and there's hundreds of meta programs in one's profile. That's just one. Just to communicate this in a simple way, because human behavior, as we can appreciate, is quite complex. So we have Charles, who's a big picture and detail orientated. Now, let's not talk to the Charles that is in 2025, the self-aware Charles. Let's talk to the Charles that is 25 years old, and you've been given a personality profile, and here it is. What the risk that you run is that you'll embrace that, but you won't take responsibility for any detail, because you'll chuff it off with, oh yeah, but my profiles, I knew it. I'm not good with detail. Even my profile said that. Now my unresourceful relationship with detail has been validated by my profile. And that's where people can become pigeonholed in their own mind and pigeonholed in other people's minds, because, oh no, Charles is a D energy, which means he speaks very directly, and that's just how it, pigeonhole. It's just labeling, and it's laced in judgment. However, let's go to Charles doing a behavioural profile version of eDISC, or what we call eDISC is extended DISC. E stands for extended. That's the instrument that I actually use specifically. I've been using that since 2010 with all my clients, and also I get my clients to. I run accreditation programs in it so they can run it within house in their own businesses without having to rely on me all the time. So the behavioral version of that speaks to Charles's energy. And so what this means is, let's go to the same pattern. Charles is naturally gifted in big picture, detail is a stretch. What this means is, energetically, you can do big pictures kind of work all day, and you'll just be naturally tired at the end of the day, but you will not be exhausted. There's a big difference between being exhausted and being tired. But if we stick Charles into an environment that requires you to focus on detail, like in terms of numbers or whatever it might be, that requires a different kind of focus, your profile will suggest, your behavioral profile will say, okay, well, energetically, Charles has about 2.5 hours of psychic fuel to be able to focus and function at that level of detail. and he's probably best to do it in the mornings, or probably best to do it in the afternoon, whatever it is in the afternoon. And then you get to know, okay, I didn't know that this was within my wheelhouse of my engine room of my car, that I can do detail. It's just that I've only got about a couple of hours worth of energy in that, and I'm best to do it in the morning. So I can now embrace the responsibility of what my business or my life entails, where I have to embrace this detail-orientated psychological approach. And I know that after 2 hours, as my eyes begin to glaze and I disentangle myself from this detail-orientated activity, that I know job done, my tank is empty there, I can go back to where I sit naturally energetically. And there are hundreds of these energetic patterns where, because especially as entrepreneurs, even people just, in regular jobs, it doesn't really matter, whatever the situation of life is, the essence of life, the quality of our lives is absolutely massively impacted by the level of energy that we bring into it. And by energy, I don't mean attitude. I mean the natural energy that is present within you. Energetic management supersedes time management big time, because if you've got no energy and you've got a brilliant time management system, all the best with that, it's not going to really work. But if you've got a brilliant energetic awareness of how you are wired, and then start to create an environment around yourself that supports that energetic profile. That's another way of putting it, Charles. If you, I see that you're writing notes. Energetic profiling is what behavioural profiling is, without going in, because I don't publicise that it's energetic profiling, because people will think it's some kind of weird spiritual thing. It's not. It's actually a very practical thing that's very, very important.
Well, I'll give you.
And then we've got emotional side.
Yeah,
which is another conversation. Again, we can go there if you want, but the energy part is a big part, and that's the reason why I chose. In 2010, I was only 4 years into my business. I realised that I needed some kind of behavioural profiling instrument that was, evidence-based, lots of historical data, something that a client can hold in their hands physically and actually feel it and read it and connect with it. And there was a plethora of profiling instruments out there. There are some brilliant personality profiling. Myers-Briggs is probably the best personality profiling instrument there is, but it comes with its limitations as per my explanation. So eDISC separates itself from general DISC because of everything I've just shared with you around the behavioural profiling nature of it.
Love it. And because we've got to move on, we've only got about 5 or 6 minutes left. We could we could do an all-day.
We should do part 2, Charles.
Program. Say again.
We should do a part 2 interview.
We can. I learned. If
you like, I'm not telling you how to run your show, but however you want to do it.
Absolutely. There's lots of there, because everything's energy, and passion. My definition of passion, and I am one of the world's experts on the topic, is that passion is a source of unlimited energy from your soul.
Yes.
That enables you to produce extraordinary results. Extraordinary, because most people aren't passionate. So everything's about energy. And the reason why I got into passion and left the law, a very successful legal career 32 years ago, was because I could absolutely see, and you can use this as well, and that's the benefit of conversations, because we all learn from each other. I could see that a nation's GDP gross domestic product came directly from individual energy, because you can't be productive if you don't have energy. And so I said, gosh, Australia's future, any nation's future, is a function of getting people to be more productive, which requires them to be more energetic, which is what you're doing. That's why energy drives a big part in everything that I do. Now, in terms of energy suck, I learned, I think this was from Mark Victor Hansen, who is a partner with Jack Canfield in their Chicken Soup for the Soul books, that people, there are, like mathematics, there are 4 types of people. People either add to you, multiply you, subtract from you, or divide you. And that's really a help. And then in that awareness in our own life, to go, well, is this person adding, multiplying, subtracting, or dividing? You've now given me an additional gloss on this, because you can ask the question, is this task adding to me, multiplying me, subtracting from me, dividing me. And it's a beautiful measure in terms of behavioural behavioural profiling, of energetic management, to understand the tasks that do that, so that you can then make that appropriate adjustment. Plus, minus, multiply, divide. A very useful tool. Now, Joe, love it. We're going to have you back again for another deeper conversation on additional topics that we can very usefully cover that will be of value to people in terms of this understanding of self-awareness. In the Stanford Graduate School of Management, the leadership voted clearly. The 75-person council at the Stanford Graduate School of Management said that self-awareness is the number one capability of leaders. And your work is all about raising people's self-awareness. So how do people find you, Joe?
Well, they can just go to my website, which is my name there on the screen, joepane.com.au, and they can download some free resources. We've got a special webinar series launch in February of 2026, where we're launching our emotional fitness accreditation program, which has been around for about 4 years. And leaders, business owners, consultants can come to the deep end of the pool with me, and really that's everything I've got on our relationship with uncertainty. So it's called the Emotional Fitness Formula. It's on February 24, 25, 26. All they need to do is go to my website, click on programs, and the emotional fitness programs, they can click that and you go into a wait list, which assures you that we'll be in touch with you when we're launching in February for that program. That's very exciting for us, because we're actually launching internationally for the first time. We've been focusing on Australia for the last 4 years, but obviously it's open to Australians because I'm here in Australia. So that's probably a good way from a long-term perspective that people can stay in touch. Otherwise, there's also links there to my podcast, and also some free resources that they can download as well.
And they can also buy your book, I presume.
Yes, and the book is on Amazon, Courage to Be You. Yeah, it's a guide to mastering uncertainty.
Beautiful. So my last question to you is, what activities in your current work, which you've now been doing, I've taken extensive notes, which you've now been doing since 2006, so you're nearly February will be 20 years.
Yeah.
What is the activity in your business, because we all have a whole range of activities, what is the activity that multiplies you? And that's my test. That'll be my equivalent test for the stuff that you're most passionate about in your work. And while you're thinking about that, I'm a Donald Trump fan. I emulate him in many ways, 3 wives, 5 children. But the third element is he is energized by public speaking, as am I. That multiplies me. It doesn't matter how tired I am. If I have to stand up before an audience, I'm full of energy. What's your multiplication activity?
Well, you've made it really easy for me to answer that question, Charles, because that's what multiplies me. There's 2 things that multiply me. 3 things. Well, there's lots of things. One of the things that multiplies me is definitely being in front of the people. I mean, as we're speaking here, I've got the blessed fortune next week to travel down to Melbourne, actually, and be with a couple of different groups. One is 35 separate businesses I'll have in one room, and another group is one business with their leadership team that I'll have in a separate training. Love it, because, as you can appreciate, Charles, when you've been doing a certain skill set for so long, you can walk into a room with a genuine sense of certainty that you're going to be adding value. And the excitement of that is, to me, the ultimate in contribution and meaning. So that multiplies me, working in person with people, absolutely. And if I can add to that, running is still multiplying, absolutely, in terms of what that does for communities I'm part of here in Noosa, in Queensland, and also the physical benefits of it all, and the spiritual benefits of it all, and the emotional benefits of it all as well. So, and there's many other activities that multiply as well, but I realise we're out of time. So I'm really excited to continue on this conversation.
We certainly will, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on your life of contribution and for having the courage to be an entrepreneur, because it does take courage to do that. I look forward to our next conversation, and I hope you inspire many people to not do what they're not passionate about, and to tap into the amazing resources that we have. And to come back to Wayne Dyer, think about when we are squeezed, what comes out, because that's the real us, and it's a wonderful learning journey. So thank you for being here. We'll look forward to the next conversation.
Thanks so much, Charles.
Thank you, Joe.